Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for your purchase of the 12-week goals planner. Or if you're a prospective customer and you're just stumbling upon this video, I hope that this provides some clarity on whether this planner may be right for you. I'm Lindsay and I own the Etsy shop Virgo Rising Design. Within my shop, I also offer a version of this planner in a PDF format. If you're the type that prefers printing this out and maybe taking pen to paper, or if you like to use PDFs in an editor like GoodNotes on your tablet, then I really recommend checking that listing out. Otherwise, if you are into the Google Sheets version, then you are definitely in the right place. Just a quick disclaimer, I designed this template with Google Sheets for Google Sheets. I know that Google Sheets does have an option where you can download for Microsoft Excel, but unfortunately I don't have Excel to test out this feature, so I can't confidently say whether or not this template will translate well to Microsoft Excel. If you have Excel and you want to give it a try, please by all means do, and I'd really appreciate if you could let me know if it is usable with Excel so that I could let other customers know. But for the meantime, I'm just going to advertise this as a Google Sheets template, and I really just recommend using that. If you're not familiar with Google Sheets, it is a free program, very similar to Microsoft Excel, but it's offered through Google's emailing services, and it uses cloud technology when it comes to saving and collaborating your work on through Google Sheets. All you need is a Google email or Gmail to get started. It's pretty quick and simple to enroll, so if you don't already have a Gmail, pause this video and sign up. Otherwise, if you do, we can get right to it and I'll walk you through how to copy this template to your own Google Drive. So, if you've purchased this listing from my Etsy shop, you will see that the only download you are given is this welcome letter PDF, since Google Sheets templates are shared through links. To copy this link, you're going to scroll down to the first link in this letter, which is this one. You're going to click on that. And this brings you to my own Google Drive and the link to the template. Now, to make sure that you are signed in, you'll see in the top right corner your little icon or initial there if you are signed in. If you are not signed in, you're going to see a sign in button. You'll also see that this is view only because you are viewing the template within my drive, and I have made it so that you wouldn't be able to edit it if you tried. To copy it to your own drive so that you can begin to use it and edit it on your drive, you're going to go to File, Make a Copy, and then you're going to name it whatever you'd like. I'm just going to stick to the original listing. Click OK. And now it's going to automatically open for me on my drive in an editable version so that I can now begin filling out this planner on my own drive. So that is basically it. That's the process on copying the template to your own drive for use. If you are pretty confident in Google Sheets and you just want to get started, go ahead. Otherwise, if you're looking for a more thorough walkthrough and explanation on how to use each of these sheets, stay with me. So this template is loosely based off of the teachings in the book The 12-Week Year by Brian P. Moran and Michael Lennington. I highly recommend, if you haven't read it, to go check that out. But if you haven't read it, you should still be able to pick up on how to use this planner without reading it first. So getting started, we are going to start on the first sheet here, labeled Aspirational Vision. This is where we're going to really just brain dump all of our big dreams and goals that we hope to accomplish within our lifetime. I really recommend just taking your time filling this section out. You really want to just assess and be honest with yourself on where you want to be in 5, 10, 20, or more years. So I already listed some visions here that I would like to accomplish within my lifetime. I have spaces for you to fill out up to 50 visions, which should definitely be enough to get you started. However, if you plan to use this for a really long time, or you're just a very ambitious person, you might want to add some more. To do that, you are just going to scroll down to the bottom of the template and you're going to see here that there is an add more rows at the bottom option. The default is 1,000, but I probably don't need that much, so I'm going to add 10 more rows. And then it automatically adds 10 and brings the formatting down of some of these drop-down boxes, but it didn't bring down the numbering. So to do that, I'm just going to highlight these 3 boxes here, just click and drag to highlight them. And then I'm going to click this little box here to drag down, and that is going to bring the numbering down all the way to the bottom there. So now I have 60 spots, and I can, of course, continue to add more as I need them. But scrolling back up to the top here, I can get a little more organized with all of these visions by giving them a category to put them in. And this is great if you are the type of person that really likes to consider your goals in terms of a balanced lifestyle. This is a good way to organize each goal and kind of get a holistic view of what areas in your life you may be focusing more on than others. So the default categories I provided you with are seen here already. However, if you'd like to customize them, maybe take away some, add your own, you can do that by going over to the last sheet here called Reference. And you're going to see this goal categories column here. And here are the ones that I've already input for you. If you want to maybe add some more, or you could even delete these and just do your own, you can totally do that. I'm going to add travel, and it is going to automatically translate to that first sheet. Since Google Sheet is cloud-based technology, it just automatically saves that for me. So all I have to do is just put that there, and then when I go back to my first sheet, I'm going to now see travel as an option under category. I'm going to just label these real quick. So it's financial, career, run a marathon, that's physical. Great, now they're all organized. Heading over to the timeline category, this is a good way to sort of roadmap out these goals for yourself so you can begin to make some long-term plans on when you want to accomplish some of these bigger visions. The default right now that you will see in this drop-down menu are 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years. Again, if you would like to customize this, maybe break this down a little further, maybe be a little more specific and have the actual year as an option, you could do that by heading back to that reference tab, and you'll see over underneath this column, aspirational timeline, you can make those edits and add whatever you'd like as your own. So you'll see throughout this template that the setting that I have set for these checkboxes is anytime that you do check off a box, the corresponding goal or vision is going to revert to this light gray color so that you could still kind of read it, but it allows you to focus on the other goals that you maybe haven't accomplished yet, and it puts more emphasis on them. So that is why that is like that. So once you have added a few aspirational visions to this sheet, of course, you can always come back to it and, change some visions or add visions. Once you have a few on there, though, you are going to head over to your 3-year vision sheets. The 3-year vision sheet is where you're going to begin to focus on some short-term actions associated with some of your larger goals. So this is where you're going to break down those aspirational visions we just created, and we're going to see what we can really do with them in the next 3 years. There are 20 spaces for you to focus on up to 20 different aspirational visions. And honestly, that's going to be more than enough for you. You're going to see that most of you will probably not need this because you will see just how many corresponding goals are associated with each vision, and it's going to be quite a lot to get through within 3 years. If you think otherwise and you think that you will need more than 20 spaces because you really want to focus on more than 20 aspirational goals in 3 years, then I would recommend, rather than adding more rows to the bottom like what we did in that last sheet, I would recommend actually just duplicating this entire sheet so that you have a separate sheet to work off of your next 20 vision. And to do that, you're just going to go down to the sheet title here, click this little arrow, and then click duplicate. And you just want to make sure you duplicate it before you begin to fill out the sheet. That way it's a nice blank template for you to work off of. I mean, no big deal if you forget to do that after you've already filled it out. You're just going to have to, go through it and delete everything so that you have space to add your new visions. So to begin to break down some of these visions into corresponding goals that we can focus on for the next 3 years, you'll see that each space is actually a drop-down menu. And that is because it is a direct reference to our aspirational vision sheet. So when I click this drop-down on the first box here, you're going to see that it shows my 3 aspirational visions that I have on the previous sheet. And that's set that way just to make it easy so you don't have to toggle back and forth between the aspirational vision sheet. And it should be updated automatically as you add more or less aspirational visions. So I'm going to go ahead and just add each of those visions to each of their own boxes. So now I am going to go through the process of breaking down these visions into goals so that we can get closer and closer to this vision within the next 3 years. To begin to break down these visions, you are going to head on over to this little plus sign button here, and that's going to toggle open our breakdown so that we can begin to come up with some corresponding goals. And I've already come up with a few here for this vision. A vision like, since this is a vision based on, a money milestone, I just kind of broke it up by increments of 4,000. Since I'm trying to reach this goal within the next 5 years, I figure, okay, well, if I save $4,000 every year, then that'll get me to my goal in 5 years. But since we're focusing on just 3 years in time right now, I have laid out these three goals for myself of reaching 4,000, 8,000, and then $12,000 in savings. We have a priority column so that I can better organize these goals and figure out, which of these goals I should give my priority to first. Just like the other drop-down menus, these options are customizable. Just head to that reference sheet that I showed you guys before, and you can, change this to however it works for you. But the default right now is low, medium, or high priority. Over to your right, the next column is the status column. And the default for that you will see is our not started status. So that is a goal that we haven't gotten started on, haven't done any planning for yet. An on hold status, maybe that's a goal that we have to wait for a certain time period to accomplish, or we have to do X, Y, and Z first before we get to it. And then our in progress status means that that is a goal that I am currently working on in my 12-week goal period. Again, this is customizable through that reference sheet if you want to change up your status options. Next column is your deadline. You can either break this down by year, or if you want to get really specific with dates, you can do that as well. And then last but not least, you have your checkbox column for once you eventually end up completing each goal. And so you can go ahead and do this for each of your visions that you've decided you want to focus on. And you'll begin to see that there really are quite a lot of corresponding goals that you can break down for each vision. So that's why I really, recommend maybe only focusing on like 3 to 5 visions per year. If that, I mean, that's still a lot, but I think 3 visions is definitely could get you through an entire year of goals. So, just try not to overwhelm yourself, especially when you're just getting started with this, but you will see just how many goals are associated with some of those larger ideas that you have. So once you have a bunch of corresponding goals figured out for some of your visions, then we can head on over to the next sheet, which would be your 12 weeks goals, period 1. So the 12-week goal sheets are really the backbone of this entire system of goal management and planning. This is where you're going to begin to take short-term actionable steps and maybe even begin to see some results. So the way that the system works is that you pick up to 3 of those corresponding goals that we came up with in our 3-year vision, and you focus on accomplishing them in a 12-week period. So this means that if you were to do consecutive 12-week periods in 1 year, you would have completed 4 periods or up to 12 of those corresponding goals. And that's pretty ambitious. So I'm sure most of you might not end up doing that many, but if you do, that's awesome. I believe that the book actually recommends that you do take a week off between each 12-week period. And I think that's great advice too, especially if you're just starting out, because that 13th week can really help you to reassess your goals and strategize for the next period. But I know some people kind of prefer to keep them consecutive so that they line up with the fiscal year if you're trying to do it by quarters or something like that. Totally up to you, whatever your preference is. There's no right or wrong answer. But you will see that you have 12 periods that are included in this template, because I like to think of this planner as a 3-year planner to go along with your 3-year vision. So after, your first 3 years, I would recommend creating an entirely new planner. If you would prefer to just keep everything all in one planner for the next 10, 20 years, or however long you want to keep this planner, You can definitely do that as well. Just make sure, like I was saying before, that you duplicate these template spreads before you write in them so that you have a blank one to work off of with each period. But 12 periods should definitely get you started and will definitely work if you are using this as a 3-year planner. So to get started with your first 12-week period, can first start by filling out the dates here of those 12 weeks. And then you are going to pick 3 corresponding goals that you have already set for yourself in your 3-year vision. So heading back to that sheet, let's just take a look at that again and see what I've come up with. So I personally like to choose 3 corresponding goals from 3 different visions, just so that I have something different to focus on in my life for each period. However, if there is a vision that you are really interested in focusing on, you have a lot of stuff that you want to get done, then you are more than welcome to focus on those 3 corresponding goals within one vision. I mean, do it however is most comfortable for you. I know I just like to sort of mix it up and have different things to focus on for each 12-week period. Looking at my first vision here and my first corresponding goal, which is to save $4,000 in a year. So if we're going to head back to my 12-week goals. So if my goal is to save $4,000 in 1 year, that means within 12 weeks of that year, I should be saving $1,000. So I'm going to make that my first goal for my first 12-week period. My second corresponding goal is going to be looking at my high priorities. I can either find an investor, maybe find a manufacturer. I'm going to do find an investor. Investor, that's my second goal for the next 12 weeks. And a goal that corresponds with running a marathon. I'm going to focus on running and signing up for my first 5K. All right. So these are the 3 goals that I'm going to be focusing on for the next 12 weeks. And you'll see, they are, in the grand scheme of things, they are rather smaller goals, but when it comes to, the bigger visions I have, they are definitely going to help me on that path to accomplishing my bigger vision. Now, to break these goals down further into a weekly plan, we are going to head over to this little plus sign toggle button, and that is going to open up this nice little breakdown for my first goal. And so this is where I can begin to plan out my entire 12-week plan to save $1,000. And so for me, that looks like, okay, I'm going to create a budget and I'd like to do that, right away. I'm going to get that done in my first week. The second type of tactic you might have for your goal is more of a habitual tactic, something that you want to get into the habit of doing and doing it weekly. Like this goal here, packing a lunch 4 times a week. And so for that, I'm just going to put a weekly deadline because that's something that I want to be doing weekly for all 12 weeks. And then I have another goal here to open a savings account. My deadline for that is week 4. When it comes to each week, you are going to be utilizing the weekly breakdown to keep track of your progress when it comes to accomplishing these tactics. We're going to start at week 1. To do that, you'll head on over to this little plus sign here to open up this weekly breakdown. And then you will see that week 1 and week 2, the breakdown is open so that we can begin to plan and assess our tactic performance for our week. And so at the start of each week for the next 12 weeks, I will give myself some time to plan the week ahead. So one of my first tactics for the week here is to create a budget. And so I'm going to put that into this box here for week 1. And then you'll see that as soon as I enter a tactic, this goal 1 total score box automatically calculates to 0%. And it is set to do that anytime that you add a tactic into either goal 1, goal 2, or goal 3, and it'll translate to their corresponding total box at the end of the week here. And this total score box just calculates your tactic performance score. And you'll see how we add that up, but just so you know, it's going to look like this as you're entering in your tactics, and that should be normal. So the next tactic that I'm going to add is to pack a lunch 4 times a week. Right. And then our third tactic for our first goal is to open a savings account, but that's not till week 4, so I don't need to put that in yet. Now, when it comes to these two tactics, for the rest of the week, we are going to try our best to accomplish them. And we are also going to keep track of our progress and score ourselves based on, the effort that we put into accomplishing them. And so there's two ways to score yourself. The first is the checkbox. So let's say at some point in the week, I complete this tactic and I create a budget. I can just automatically check that off here. And then we go over here to this score box. It's going to give me a score of 100%. And that translates down to our total score for the week. Of course, we will see this new number now. The second way to score yourself is for goals that are maybe a little more habitual in nature. So like this specific goal, which is to pack a lunch 4 times a week. Since you essentially have 4 chances to complete this tactic, we are going to create a score based around that number 4. So we are going to bring that goal of 4 over to this goal column here and put 4 in. And then we are going to utilize this weekly scoreboard to assess ourselves throughout the week, whether or not we bring a packed lunch. So for every day that we bring a packed lunch, we can give ourselves 1 point. So let's say we do it Monday, Tuesday, and then maybe we fall off the wagon on Thursday and Friday. So we only end up doing it 3 times that week. And this column here is going to automatically calculate that for us. And then we will see that our total score for the week for this tactic is 75%. And down here, our total score for the entire week for goal 1 is then adjusted to 88%. So when it comes to using the scoreboard, just make sure you're not clicking within these columns. I've grayed them out to hopefully discourage you from clicking on them and accidentally deleting the formulas that I have in there. So just keep in mind that you only want to be entering in numbers into the white spaces. So that's your goal column, and then this week, these scoreboard columns here. And then you just want to leave these gray columns alone so that they can add everything up correctly. Also keep in mind, if you decide to use the weekly scoreboard method for a goal, don't use the checkbox because the checkbox will then override whatever score you have. So for this, if I decided I'm going to check this off, that's going to override it and put it as 100%, even though I didn't get 100%, I only got 3 out of 4. So I would recommend either using the checkbox and only using the checkbox or using the weekly scoreboard. And of course, if I did do 4 out of 4, it'll give me that 100% that way as well. And then it's going to take the score for each tactic of the week, and it's going to give me a total score for that week, and that is the average score of my tactic performance. And so basically at the end of the week, once I've gone through and I've accomplished whatever tactics I've set for myself for each week, for each goal, I will then be able to see my total score of the week. And then there is a nice little space here for any notes you might have for that week. And you are going to do this for every week. Each week expands out, but you're going to go through and do it for all 12 weeks. Until at the end of 12 weeks, then you can head on down to your review period, which is at the bottom here. To toggle that open, you'll press that little plus sign, toggles it all open for you. And within this review section here, our first box is a little breakdown of each goals weekly tactic performance score, since all we've filled out so far is week 1. Goal 1, that's all we see, but eventually at the end of the 12 weeks, you'll see all of your scores here, and it's just automatically going to populate that for you. I have a formula in there to do so, so don't worry on adding this yourself. And then heading over to this box here, this is where you're going to see your overall score for each goal's tactical performance. And now keep in mind, this scoring method of like your tactical performance, I mean, doesn't necessarily correlate to whether or not you're going to accomplish a goal, but it is just a good way to sort of assess yourself and to see how much effort you're really putting into accomplishing your goal. But it's not 100% scientific. I mean, there's been some weeks where I've had a terrible tactical performance score, but I still accomplished that goal. Or maybe I was doing really great week to week, accomplishing all my tactics. And then at the end of the 12 weeks, I didn't end up accomplishing that goal. And Sometimes that just like means you have to reassess the tactics you set out for yourself. Other times, maybe it's just a goal that is more of a long-term result type thing that you're really just not going to see results for quite a while. The scoring method, I think, is just a good way for you to assess yourself other than just assessing based on your outcomes. So don't get too hung up on these numbers here, but you will see your average score based on all of your weekly scores in these boxes here. And then there is some space for you to assess your goal outcome, see if there is a correlation between your tactical performance and some of those outcomes. Maybe there's not. Whatever sort of observations you want to make, you can do that. There is some space for you to do that here. And then down here is even more space for you to write some observations, and there are some prompt questions. And then after your first 12-week period, you can head on over to your second period and pretty much start the whole process over again by choosing a whole new set of goals from your 3-year vision and going through week to week and planning out how to accomplish them. Next up, I'm going to show you the weekly time blocking template. And this is just another tool to sort of help schedule out your week and plan out when you're going to accomplish some of these tactics and goals over your 12-week period. If you're not already familiar with time blocking, it is a productivity technique for personal time management where you pretty much schedule out certain periods of time into smaller segments or blocks for specific tasks or to-dos. So this is really helpful when it comes to planning out just when we are going to focus on some of those tactics that we had set aside for ourselves for the 12-week period. So I've utilized some vocabulary from the 12-week yearbook that you'll see in the key here. Of course, you can change this to whatever works best for you, but this is just the default that you will see when opening up the template. So you have a buffer block, which is used for scheduling unforeseen distractions like answering emails. So typically you will schedule 1 to 2 of these throughout your day, 30-minute or to an hour time periods, just so that you have some time set aside for yourself to, answer that email or call that person back. Whatever you consider to be an unforeseen distraction, that is your time to do that. Then you have your strategic blocks, which are typically 3 hours of uninterrupted work dedicated to producing your best quality work. So this is a great block to set some time aside to accomplish your tactics or, to get some stuff done for work or whatever else that needs your undivided attention at that time. Your breakout blocks are for giving yourself downtime, which is important to do, especially after a long 3-hour strategic block. You definitely want to make sure you're giving yourself a little break after that, going for a walk, maybe reading a book, something to just clear your head before you maybe jump into the next strategic block or do a buffer block or something like that. And then I've also set some blocks for myself for personal things, for my appointments, for meetings. And you can add whatever might be relevant to you and add a corresponding color as well. And then you're just going to go through your week and strategize using these blocks. So Monday morning, 6 a.m., I wake up. I have a nice little personal routine for myself that I like to get done within 2 hours. So I'm going to set a 2-hour personal block window for myself, and that's my morning routine. I can label that as well. Routine. And then I typically like to jump into work around 8:30, and so I'm going to add on Monday morning, I'm going to add a buffer block there because it's Monday. Probably going to have some emails to answer. So I'll set aside a half hour for myself to answer some emails from 8:30 to 9. And then at 9 o'clock, I'm going to jump into a strategic block. And that is going to put me until 12 o'clock. A strategic block. And then maybe, for this strategic block, maybe I am working on goal 2 tactics. And then let's add a breakout block, an hour, give myself an hour for lunch, take a little walk. And then once I get back from lunch, I'm going to add another strategic block to 4 o'clock. some client work I got to get done at that point. And then I'm going to schedule another little breakout block, go for a walk. And then I'm going to schedule the last sort of buffer block and maybe answer any emails that have come in at the end of the day. And there we go. I have an entire Monday routine scheduled for myself. I have some quality time that I have set aside for myself to accomplish some of my goal to tactics. And, I can make sure that I schedule this time for each of my goals throughout the week. But that should give you an idea of how this planning process looks, and how to really make sure you're setting a time aside for yourself, so that you can accomplish these tactics. Everyone's schedule will look different. I mean, and yours might look different from week to week, or maybe you can kind of stick with this same schedule over the course of the 12 weeks. Totally up to you, and what works for you best is what you should use. All right, guys, that wraps up my walkthrough of the 12-week goals planner. Hopefully, that answered some of your questions and sort of gave you some ideas on how you are going to use this tool and fill it out. In the walkthrough, I showed you some of the sort of base customizations when it comes to first filling out your planner. Of course, you can customize it even further by changing up the color and some of the headings. I mean, to do that, you would just highlight a heading like this and then change the color to there, and you can play around with that. Or you can even change the font to whatever works with your style. Please be advised that any changes you make with formulas or the layout of the sheets that ends up, messing with the entire sheet, I cannot provide any tech support to help you with those customizations. But if you ever find yourself stuck in a situation where you've just made so many changes and you're just kind of lost and everything's all messed up now, you can, of course, go back to that original link that I have sent you, and you can just make a new copy and start fresh again. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you bought this product on my Etsy shop, I would really appreciate if you left some feedback through a review, or send me a DM if something's not quite right. I am more than happy to help you out. Thanks again, guys. I can't wait to see what you accomplish.